Hi, my name is Kevin Taggart. I'm a detective with the Myrtle Creek Police Department. I've been invited here by the Douglas County Human Trafficking Task Force. This project is going to be a series of short videos geared towards parents and guardians who may have a child with a new cell phone device that connects to the internet and how to keep them safe online.
My child wants a smartphone. Should I get them one?
So a lot of this depends on the maturity level of your child. Is it a grade school age child? Is it a high school age child? That's huge factors to take into consideration. Is your child trustworthy? Is your child someone that you can trust to be alone with a phone for a half hour in their bedroom? One of the things that I know some parents do with their children is they'll actually let them use their phone and kind of see how they do with it, see if they follow the rules. Are they looking at only things that they're supposed to look at on the phone? And because it's your phone, you can track that and check it and look at history and things like that. Some of it has to do with the responsibility and maturity level of the child with things not related. Do they do their homework like they're supposed to? Do they complete their chores or their household duties like they're supposed to? Are they generally a good kid, or are they in trouble all the time? That's one thing that you have to weigh when you're thinking about getting your child a device that connects to the internet.
Before I hand over the phone, how do I make sure that I have some control?
So I know that when my kids were coming up, I had a carrier that I could do a family plan. I paid, it was something like $5 a month, and I could monitor each of my children's lines. It would show me who they're texting, what phone numbers, what times, what time they're using data on that device, even if it was connected to the Wi-Fi. So your carrier is the first place to start. The next thing to remember is when you download applications, do that with your child. That way that you can set the restrictions on them. You can approve or disapprove which applications that they download. Limit the content. Don't let your child, especially if it's the first phone, just have a free-for-all ordering session and fill up the phone with unneeded applications and applications that are, especially ones that are dangerous.
What about all the mature content? How do I restrict that?
So when you get the device, you'll be able to set through your carrier. Primarily, you can do the content and privacy restrictions. In other words, you'll be able to set up with your carrier. For example, YouTube has a kids YouTube, so you can set your device to only allow the kids version of YouTube. And every application has different features on it, and it can be kind of overwhelming, and that's why it's important to start out with your representative, with your phone carrier, to ask them those kind of questions and have them help you set things up.
What about location services? I want to know my kid got home okay.
So that's a great feature. I have a lot of friends who use it. You can track where your child is because it tracks the device. The bad part about the location services is so can anyone else if it's used improperly. For example, Facebook has a check-in feature where your child can check in. So what we see that isn't real safe for kids is, say you have a 13-year-old daughter who's hanging out down at the park with her 13-year-old friend, and she takes a picture and posts it and checks into that park. Well, what you've done, especially if your privacy settings on that specific application aren't set right, what you've done is basically announced to the world that there's two 13-year-old girls hanging out at this park. So you really have to be careful with the location services. It has its ups and downs. You just got to kind of, again, going back to the children and how responsible they are, you got to make sure that your children know that this is what the location service is used for and this is what it can't be used for. Another thing in applications, a lot of times when it wants to use your location, it will ask you the first time you use that application, will you allow the location service to be used? And you can disallow that.
I'm sure they'll take lots of selfies. What about the camera?
So the camera function is kind of like the location feature. You can allow it or disallow it in the application itself. So for example, if you're using a certain application, you take a photo and you want to upload it to that application, normally on the first time that you use it, it will ask you if you will allow that application to have access to your photos. You need to deny that because you don't want bots and other things out there to have access to your content on your device or your child's device.
I've heard there are some filtering apps. Are those worth it?
They are. First and foremost, I like to recommend to people start with your carrier and their family plan. I know a lot of the major carriers have their own services where you can set it up so that you can see what's on the actual device and what's being done. There are filters that will filter specific applications and websites. There's monitoring. That's where basically, like we were talking about earlier, you can monitor when your child is texting, when your child's using the internet, what they're looking at. And then they have basically what's called parental spyware, where basically you can see everything your child's doing on the phone. And again, your carrier is the best place to start with that. There are applications out there, and I recommend that you do some online research, Google the applications set up for parents to monitor.
Won't my kid feel like I don't trust them if I look at their phone?
You know, it's a really hard balance with that because yes, sometimes kids feel like, oh, well, mom and dad can't trust me. That comes back to the importance of having those tough conversations with your children and telling them, okay, I'm getting you this device. I do trust you, but I don't trust other people. So I am going to check. What I like to tell people in our presentations is everyone has a Fourth Amendment right. It's a basic constitutional right against unlawful searches or seizures. This has to do with law enforcement, so I as a police officer can't walk up to you and say, give me your phone without a warrant. Having a child with a phone, they have no Fourth Amendment right. You are in control, you're the parent, you have every right to look in that device and see what your child's doing with it.
How do I know if an app is dangerous or not?
It's real simple. They have several sites out there, and I'm going to give you some of them here in a little bit. The easiest and best tool that I tell parents to use is Google. Google dangerous apps. It's a simple search, and there'll be numerous sites that kind of show you what the applications are, what they do, how people hide them, and how to avoid your child getting them.
Can I see where my kid has been online?
Yeah, you can check search history on every device. Most people use the Google search, so it's preloaded on most cell phones. So what you can do is click on that Google search bar, and it'll show you a list of the most recent things looked at. If you scroll down to the bottom of that list, there should be a button on there that says search history or history settings. You can go in there and edit the settings so that you can make sure that the history is saved in the device so they can't just search it and it doesn't show back up. And when you scroll down from there, it'll give you a list of everything that was searched, the date, the time, and it goes on forever and ever until you take it out.
Is there anything else I need to do?
Like I said before, the biggest thing is having the conversations with your kids. That's the most important number one key. Is making sure that your kids understand that it's a big responsibility to have a phone that connects to the internet. There's a lot of bad people out there that do bad things, and they need to be aware of those dangers. Sometimes it's not an easy conversation to have, but that's most important, number one. You need to have those conversations, and you need to make an agreement and have your child agree to your terms when it comes to using their device. If you make a rule in regards to what they're looking at on the internet, you need to make sure that they're in agreement that they are going to follow it. If they're not in agreement with that, I wouldn't get them one.